Hey y'all, welcome back to Krista's Kitchen. So today we have a quick side dish recipe for y'all. It's a balsamic glazed mushroom recipe. So I've never made this before, but I saw it pop up on my news feed on Facebook and it looked really, really yummy and super simple. So I'm all about simplicity and delicious food, so I figured I'd take y'all along for the ride. It's super easy. Almost everything is already in your kitchen most likely. The only thing I really had to replenish was my balsamic vinegar, which I usually have anyway, but I run out. But I'm going to move y'all closer, show y'all how simple it is, and we'll taste test it together and see if it's worth it and if it's definitely a keeper or not. Okay y'all, so we have about 2 pounds of mushrooms in here, and they are getting a little to where they definitely need to be used up. So perfect timing for this. To this we're going to add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And this is probably just to coat it really well and make sure they roast up nicely. Now make sure you wash your mushrooms really well. You don't want any of that dirt and nastiness down in your food. So next we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar as well. There we go. Next we have about 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So lots of flavoring going into, squirt right everywhere, going into this. I'm going to use about 3 cloves of garlic. I never measure my garlic, but it should be about 1.5 teaspoons of the minced garlic, I believe, if you have that. I like garlic, so I always add in a little bit extra. And then we're going to chop up about 1 tablespoon of fresh thyme and put in here. Let's grab my little mini cutting board. So this is rosemary, not thyme, but the recipe calls for thyme, just to throw that out there. For rosemary, to pull it off of the stem, you just pull it back in a backwards motion and it'll come right off. Now if you're using dried herbs, you need a little bit less than about half the measurement of dried herbs that you would of fresh. And the reason I'm using rosemary is, again, it's what I have on hand. I love this flavor, so it is going to give it a little bit different flavor profile. But the main thing is we have the basis of this and we're just changing up kind of the flavoring with the herbs that we're choosing. And sprinkle that around. So one little sprig probably did the trick. We're going to toss this all around and let those mushrooms really get coated and everything. So add a little bit of salt and pepper. Now I do use low sodium soy sauce, so that doesn't worry me as much with the salt, but just be careful with how much salt you're using with the soy sauce and everything. You don't want to make them too salty. So we already have a ton of oil in here, so I don't think that we should have to oil our pans. We're just going to pour these right on here. We have the oven preheating to 400. As soon as it comes up to temperature, we're going to toss these in and let them roast for about 20 minutes. Let's see if there's any of these I don't want them to boil in the juices of this, but I definitely want them soaked in. You can tell this is mushrooms from my Misfits box. It's a Misfit mushroom for sure. But I just want these spaced out, all of them on the pan, so they get cooked up nice and evenly. Alright y'all, we'll see y'all in about 20 or so minutes. Once this comes up to temperature, I'm going to pop them in the oven. Hey y'all, welcome back. So the mushrooms are out of the oven. They cooked for right at 20 minutes and now it's time to taste test. I do have it up here kind of cooling off for a second just so I don't scald my mouth. Be careful when you're eating mushrooms and things right out of the oven or right out of the pan. They're very juicy, they hold those waters and they can burn your mouth. But I'm going to taste test and see how this is. It's good. It's still, to me, a little bland. Just juicy. Doesn't really, like with everything that we put into it, I really would expect a lot more salt, a lot more flavor. I say they're bland. They're not terrible. I really expected them to have a nice punch. I get the sour note from the balsamic. I really don't get the onion or the rosemary. Did I say onion? I meant garlic, if I said onion. I don't get the garlic or the rosemary. Not a lot of salt, not a lot of the soy sauce flavorings. We're going to see if a little bit of extra salt brings out some of those flavorings in. The salt does help, but I think that I'm going to add a little bit more rosemary, maybe even some of the dried thyme, toss it around in there, and let it soak up some of those flavors. Somehow I still feel like it needs even more salt. And I know that mushrooms, like they need a lot of seasoning to really flavor them. But these just kind of seem bland. So I'm going to play with them, see how they turn out. But not a loss, like it's not a complete loss for it not working. But let's add, let's see if we've got some, I know we've got some thyme in here. There we go. And just a little bit. It's going to get full on just mushrooms. Now that one has a lot of balsamic in it. So maybe it depends on how dry the mushrooms are, how much it really soaks it in. That one was actually pretty darn good. I think maybe a little bit more soy sauce even in the very beginning would cook well into these. But not bad, especially we're pairing them, I'm putting it alongside of a roast tonight, which has a lot of flavoring. So maybe this sour, buttery note will help balance that out. But I definitely think I'm going to play with this a little bit more and see where we can go with it. So far, I would recommend adding quite a bit more salt. Now be hesitant with it, especially in the beginning. But then a little more herb and maybe even let them soak in that soy sauce before, because we just kind of tossed it around in it and then went straight to the pan. So maybe if they soaked in that soy sauce and garlic mixture, they'd have a little bit more flavor to them. But not terrible. But thank y'all for joining us. I'm still glad I saw it on my Facebook, and I'll let y'all know how we amp it up and if we end up changing it and making it like a miraculous mushroom dip. But we'll see y'all next time. Bye.